Welcome back, Thomas. How are you today?
I'm great, Dharam, and I'm always great when I talk to you because we have an enjoyable 60 minutes or whatever, and always interesting topics, different perspectives. We don't always agree on the same thing, but that's part of the game, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes, yes. You come with your own perspective. I come from my own perspective, and that's where the audience can see from different point of view and use whatever can work for them.
Yeah, yeah.
So, thank you again. So, we have done so many webinars together, and you probably have the count 80 plus now.
Well, I only have 76 in my list,
Yes, some
so
probably coming. I'm around 80. Let's say 80. Around
yeah,
80.
yeah. But maybe my list is incomplete. So yeah, maybe.
That's not very
If you share the full list somewhere, it would be beneficial not only to me and you, but also for the
yeah.
audience.
Anyway, so today is our continuation of the previous topic. We start talking a few weeks ago, and we did not get chance to complete our discussion. The topic we talked started conflict resolution on multicultural projects and programs.
Yeah,
You want to quick recap what we had discussion at the time?
yeah. We can recap. So we discussed a little bit about conflict resolution and how the let's say the problems multiply if you have multicultural teams
Mm,
because you have different perspectives and many more views on the thing. And but although there are some approaches to mitigate these problems for coming from different cultures.
yeah,
And then we discussed about what are the common sources of conflict in these teams and how to overcome them. And so we had some ideas. And what we didn't do actually mention specific AI tools helping with that. But honestly, there are a lot of AI tools on the market that you could experiment with in these situations. So there's a lot of emotional, effective AI, and it helps you a lot to understand what the other person is feeling, so and how to come together. And
okay,
then we looked at PMI standards and tools, how they include some ideas about conflict resolutions in these things, and they do. There is a lot of uh, yeah, problem solution for conflicts for years as the PIMO guide. I recall the PIMO guide 2000 already included some of these conflict resolution things, like this the best way to resolve a conflict is collaboration and not confrontation and not compromising even, and then we discussed a little bit about real life examples, and I talked about examples I experienced in India and also in Japan from
mm,
my German European view with multicultural teams and what kind of conflicts came up. Actually, conflicts that wouldn't come up if you only had a German team in this one culture, yeah. But if you have multicultural teams and perceptions and judgments are different, and you have to understand this from the beginning, and then you are not surprised and not reacting in a strange way
yeah,
on their behaviors.
yeah, yeah. I think best for people is to go back to that video, the previous discussion, and here we can continue our others, the remaining discussion points. So you did mention about the AI tools. So let me ask a question around that first.
Mhm.
So, in what ways can technology, which is now ChatGPT and many other things are happening, AI-based tools, particularly AI and machine learning, aid in early detection and resolution of conflicts in multicultural teams? How can they help us to identify those events about to happen?
Yes, so there is a branch of AI tools and AI research that's looking into interpersonal connections and interpersonal discussions, and it's called emotional AI, EAI,
Hmm?
or AI that's dealing with sentiments, and this AI. can get as an input just the written statements of people, like emails or like transcripts of calls or like this. But there are tools that also analyze your facial expressions, and so I saw maybe 15 years ago a video about a Chinese school class, little kids sitting in the benches, and there was a video camera watching them, and in the end, the video camera came out and could tell who was asleep, who was paying attention, who was otherwise, thinking. And so this is data for the teacher, and what he does with them. It's not that they should be punished, but if one guy is really not paying attention, maybe he's distracted, doesn't understand it, or maybe it's just the content of the class is just too simple for him. So it's valuable information for the teacher. And I saw this maybe 15 years ago. You can certainly say that the same thing you could do in a professional, in a business setting, or
Yeah,
in a working setting. So it gives you information you didn't have before, or maybe you could have, if you are, let's say, a moderator of a meeting. You have 15 people in the room around the table, or
yeah,
on the Zoom. What are you doing? And if you're good, you can watch all these 15 faces and see what's happening, and grasp an idea. Oh, but there it might be something brewing, but then there is a heated discussion going on, and you don't have the time to intervene in that moment. And after the meeting, it's almost gone. So there are tools, and many tools that are like Read AI or so, or in Zoom or in MS Teams. Here we have a lot of tools that are not only looking at the content of a meeting, what has been said and decided, but also at the interactions. Who talked the much, who was interrupting whom, who had a raised voice and acted emotionally, reacted emotionally. That is all good information. And the point is, the project manager or the program manager, as a team moderator, you have to be able to sense these kinds of interruptions, because they are the maybe signs of a brewing conflict. And
yeah,
if you don't intervene early, it might get worse. Probably it gets worse, and then you have a big thing to solve instead of acting right early. So
yeah,
there are these tools that are, I would call them sentiment analysis, going into a meeting and looking at the emails and other interactions in instant messaging or so. But there are also predictive conflict analysis meetings. So if AI knows who is in the room, or in the Zoom room, or whatever, in the real room, then they have a pattern of how this person behaves in certain
yeah, yeah.
situations.
Pattern recognition.
Pattern changes,
Mm,
AI can say, okay, there is something. I don't know what the effect will be, but there is a change, and then you can see, okay, what is the purpose, what is the reason of the change? Might be a positive change because this person learned something, got a new responsibility or whatever. But it is a change, and as a project manager, you might want to be aware of changes. And then
yeah,
there are these one tool is called receptivity, MSV, Microsoft Viva Insights, or Cogito. These are a lot of tools if you look out at that. But then you always have to remember, as a human, you go into a human setting, and then the best way is, if you are in a room and you have the way to really understand, you feel what's going on, and there are maybe micro expressions or behaviors or eye movements you probably understand better than an AI would do today.
yeah,
But if I look 10 years in the future, I think AI would be better than humans doing that. So what I personally used to get this, to sense this in the team, I had a big team, and I had my spies in the team. So I had team members in the PMO, and when I came in the room, when I come in the room as a project manager, and the room gets silent, you have a problem.
They are talking something behind you.
Yeah, and trying to hide something, or yeah, if it's a problem or whatever. And then if you have spies in the team, it's not a negative thing, but they give you some more information, and you don't expose them, though
Mm.
that's a little bit dishonest, but it's very valuable. So I tell you one story where the spy was very important for me and for the team and for the companies involved. So we had a client, and the client project manager, he had an assistant, a young female, and
Mm.
we had a young male on our team, a very bright person, very extrovert, everything. And actually, he started not dating her, but approaching her, in sexual
Yeah,
whatever, you know. And so I didn't notice that, and he really did it calmly. And although luckily the project manager on the client side didn't notice it either, but my spy noticed it, And I must say, she was a female spy, so females are better in noticing this kind of behavior. And so she told me, and I talked to the guy, and we could actually prevent him being fired. Because this, if he would have succeeded or gone too far, it would be a
yeah,
real violation of not only conduct guidelines, but maybe of laws,
yeah,
and even if not, the client would be very upset with that kind of behavior. So it was very valuable for the client, from ourselves, for the person itself, to stop that behavior. And before you can stop something, you have to know about it.
exactly. No, this very, very valuable example is a very good example how, keeping an eye and, while we are trusting or looking at various tools and talking about various tools, they can help you to give you some sign, indication, possibilities. But at the end of the day, human has to, you have to look at from your angle.
Yeah,
You can actually sense a lot of emotions, what's going on. Now, if I give an example, let's say with the kids at home, the young kids, very very young, and toddlers and 3-year-old, 4-year-old, they think they are the best. They know everything at that age. But as a parents, you can sense what's going on within those minds, crazy mind. They're going to, especially when they're quieter. Now, no sound means something. Something is something is happening. And yeah, so that's what it is, observation, and relying on your colleagues feedback. In your case,
yeah,
this other girl was able to help you, give you some feedback, and some the tools which can see the pattern, the way you write message emails, on how your facial expression, um, and many things can be learned
yeah,
by your behavior, or the way you walk, the way you smile, can give you a lot of indication. So yeah.
yeah. To extend on your case of kids at home, if you observe them and you see something and you want to adapt their behavior to be appropriate, yeah, you are educated, and that's seen as very positive, to give them some guidance, and to make sure. Same is true. I have no kids, but I have a dog. The same is true for the dog. So
Yeah.
for instance, I'm working on my dog right now. Well, I worked a lot, and he is pulling the leash. If I go out in the evening, so he's very engaged to go out and to see what's happened all the day, and smell all the grass spots on the road. And so he was pulling the leash, and that's sometimes even dangerous. If he pulls you and you fall down and everything. So to correct this behavior, to not create any conflict between the dog and me,
Mm.
so I have to make sure that we have a kind of boundary for him, so that he cannot walk in front of me. So how to instill that? You have to repeat the same thing. If he starts pulling, you just stop. You pull it back, and then at your side, I just hold the hand on top of his head, in front of him, so not
Mm.
touching him really, but showing him the sign, if the hand is in front of your nose, you don't pass. And this behavior, he understands this. If I now do this, put the hand like that, he understands
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going on. And that's the same with the people in the team. And if uh, you might have seen it with great leaders, if somebody behaves in a way, they must maybe just raise an eyebrow or like that, and the other guy understands from this behavior, okay, I'm crossing the boundary.
Yeah. And look, as we know, we talked about nowadays it's becoming AI or artificial intelligence is becoming more and more powerful. But we also need to be careful about the privacy of other people. You don't want to, if you keep focusing on their face all the time, that's a privacy breach as well. You need to be
Yeah.
careful about that.
Well,
Anyway,
I
yeah,
think AI has an advantage over us because AI always is conscious.
yeah,
It's always doing something on the data they have gained,
yeah,
while we are doing a lot of things that are unconscious, intuitive. So we have a feeling and we act like that. Maybe
yeah.
95% of our decisions every day. I heard a presentation recently, and this woman said, "Okay, we are doing about 3,500 decisions every day.
Yep.
30,000, 35,000 decisions every day. How
Uh,
many of these are really conscious? How many of these we are really aware of?" So most of our decisions are coming out of the gut, and
but maybe some biased because some we have biasness
yeah.
against some favoring something, somebody, some religion, some country. There's some many decisions are made. Uh, based on their own the upbringing and biasness as well. So
And being biased is part of our nature. So if we are
yeah,
not biased, we are no longer human. So
yeah,
AI should not be biased, but it depends on the data they get.
exactly. This a bit depends on data as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Thank you. Good discussion. Thank you for this. What are the most effective communication technique for ensuring clarity and understanding among culturally diverse team members? And can you provide example of how these techniques have been successfully implemented?
Yeah. Well, we all on intercultural teams we agree on English as our working language.
Yep. Yeah.
It has not to be Oxford English, or not Texan English. It has to be a simple language with no jargon and
Yeah.
speak slowly so that it's very clear what you are saying, what you're trying to say. That is not always so easy because if you are engaged, a little bit upset, you might uh, revert to speaking very quickly or doing this interruptions in your speech. But you can learn that, no jargon, no other stuff. So I'm always uh, aware when I have US guys in my team, because they like to talk about baseball. Nobody else in the world is interested in baseball, or in American football. So, but they talk about, whatever, and then you can see these are the Americans. Okay, yeah. So if you are living in a culture that is very much working with other cultures,
Yep.
and I think German culture is that we are more aware of these differences and we avoid talking about local sports or local events or whatever, or even politics, try to avoid that politics. So that's the one thing. Um, but you can replace this simple language, which is a basic for all, this should start with that, with a kind of project culture. So
Mm.
in that project, if we have some triggers, some signs, some symbols, some keywords, that's a good thing. So if we, let's say, go into an SAP rollout and we have a location and we can give that location a buzzword, and then we know we are going this buzzword and everybody understands it. So we are creating a new language, we are creating a new signs and symbols, and this creates some cohesion
Mm.
because everybody within the team understands this, but people outside the team maybe not. Yeah. So that's something you could work on, creating your own project culture. There will never be a perfect project culture, but you should work on that for your temporary team in a project. And then you also have to understand that well, I'm not a guy who is very audio oriented,
Yeah.
but I'm oriented, in writing. So I like writing, but other people I like to listen more. So
Yeah.
I often get WhatsApp called by people who are more listeners, and they talk something into WhatsApp, and I never I never listen to that, because when I'm using my phone, I'm using it normally in a setting where I'm not alone. So, and I really don't want to listen to things where I have to open up the speaker or listen to something. It's also takes too much time. But there are people, that are more in a tactile. They are trying to touch you, or kinesthetic movement oriented.
Mm.
Into so they use different multiple communication means, and train them, and be of that. And then a third thing I want to mention is, if you never heard of it, Google active listening. Active listening is a really worked out and well documented technique, which should be in the tool set of every project manager. And
Yep. Yep.
it's much more important if you are working in a diverse team, if it's culturally diverse, or else, So active listening has some sub techniques you can do, like rephrasing things, asking questions, being silent for 10 seconds. Try that, Uh,
Mm.
it's really uh, a very valuable technique. You should make uh, your habit. It's not that you recall the techniques and remember the slide, and then I should do this and that. No, no, it should be part of your behavior set. It should become a habit. Um, I read a survey, and they looked at negotiators, contract negotiators
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
law negotiators. So who are the best? What are the behaviors of the best negotiators? And as project managers, we are negotiators too,
Yeah. Yeah.
And what they found is, these guys are using one of these active listening techniques extremely often, and that's summarizing. So
Okay.
summarizing what has been said in the last 5 minutes, put it into one or two sentence, and then get an agreement on that summary. It's also important because if you're negotiating, about the price and whatever, you have
Yeah.
discussed some of the parameters, and you summarize, and then you make the point that, okay, we agreed on something, which
Yeah.
is a good thing that brings us together, but also it's a step forward in coming to a final conclusion about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I should be doing active listening and listen, summarizing what did you say in last 7 minutes.
Sorry,
So
you
yeah.
invited me to talk.
So yeah, so that's where the communication strategies, it mentioned active listening is one of them. Very, very important for anybody, and especially negotiation projects when the requirements are being discussed, when we're talking about the business opportunities. So we need to pay attention, taking notes, asking, clarifying, and looking in the eyes, eye contacts.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
What is
using
what is also important in this respect, is that you agree on not agree that you uh, understand that there are common ethical values, moral standards,
yeah,
and it's you can look at the PMI code of ethics. So if
yeah,
you have to respect the other person as individual, as in their role, in their status. So if you attack their status, they will be very upset, that they will not really be a good discussion partner, or offer positive information. You
yeah,
have to be responsible. That's showing up on time, or if not possible, informing the other person. Doing that, you have to be fair. If you take something, you have to give something. That's something embedded in our behaviors anyhow. But it's something you can have in your mind and can behave accordingly. And honesty is a fourth value in the PMI code of ethics, which is, we have to be frank and open and honest and not apparently hiding. That's except my spy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and one more important point, which we can talk about, the body language, and especially when you talk about in a culturally diverse situation, and also the gesture, what is appropriate in one community, one culture may not be appropriate in other culture. So the
Yeah.
language we use, is acceptable to use some words in some language, but other culture may not accept that. For them, it's more sensitive.
Yeah.
So some of these knowledge about who are in your team and their background, their cultural background, their religious background, or language sensitivity can also help you to minimize some conflicts like that.
Yeah. And you learn that, it for me it falls under the topic of respect, the value of respect,
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
understand which are the usual behaviors these persons are accustomed to, and
yeah,
you don't violate these. That's a
yeah,
kind of respect. You
yeah.
respect their personality. For instance, if you talk with East Asian people, all of the cultures have embedded a feeling, the need of saving their face. So
Hmm.
there should be no embarrassment. There should be no public contradiction and
Yeah,
this kind of stuff, and uh, actually in the current discussions between China and the U.S. government, there are exactly these points that are highlighted from time to time by the Chinese, that we want to be respected, and they mean that,
yeah,
so we can discuss facts, but we should not really
yeah.
behave like we are enemies.
Yeah, and also emotional intelligence can another thing we can think about, how what you're saying and how the people are reacting. You thinking yourself in their shoes when you're saying something. What they're going through this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you. My next question is, how can project managers build cultural awareness and sensitivity within their teams? And what specific trainings or activities have you found to be more useful?
Well, if you have different cultures, and maybe you're entering a team and you have people from not one culture but maybe
Multi-
at least two, you don't have maybe 20 cultures in the room, so it's also limited. Maybe, so what I experienced, you have three or four cultures in the room, and then you can very specifically analyze, okay, what are the specifics and the key touch points of each of these cultures, where are the differences. What I found very helpful is to hold cultural workshops with the
Mm,
teams, bring them together and bring them to the same information about cultural differences. And I used a lot of these Hofstede um, tools, who is comparing country cultures and pointing out the differences, like the differences. How much do I not respect, but do I depend on my superiors? So am I able to decide on my own, or am I always going back to my manager and asking for permission? And this is quite different in cultures, and can be quite um, disturbing. So, I had one project in a French team, and the project manager, I was not the project manager for that, but the project manager negotiated with French team members to do this and that, and
yeah,
they never did it. And the point was that they expected to do things if their manager approves. But the
yeah,
manager was never asked. They didn't ask their manager, and the project manager, the German guy, didn't ask their manager either. So the solution was quite simple. In
yeah,
any agreement, involve the manager, and the manager will say nothing or whatever, but he will give an approval for that. So that's a difference. If you don't understand that, you will run into conflicts and problems all the time, because you think they are lazy, they are whatever, stubborn or what, and the French can be lazy and stubborn, but as the Germans can. But the reasons are different. So this is. something you should do, bring them to the same level of awareness of these differences.
Yeah.
And then, if this awareness is there, if you have some time in the workshop, then you do some role playing. You
Mm.
know, let the Indian guy play a US guy and the US guy play an Indian guy. It's very interesting results, and but they learn something from it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do some gaming, um, and then after this workshop, and I would say do it a 2 day workshop. You have an evening where you can have a joint dinner, and some discussions on that, and go on. Then you might even employ an external instructor to do that if you are part of the team, because well, I did it often myself as a project manager, but you have to be knowledgeable and done it before you can really do it effectively. And then for the daily work, encourage open dialogue and culture sharing. you know be open with what you feel, and understand that you might behave in a way that the other is not accustomed to. They don't cannot interpret it really. Adapt your communication style. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Clear, simple language, maybe no jargon, but maybe a project specific wordings what you have there. And practice. uh, you know you can there are always conflicts, and many people tend to run away if there's conflict looming. you know Avoid it, and
Yeah.
and that's a bad decision. Maybe you if you have a conflict looming and it's maybe not so important, experiment with it. What works, what doesn't work. And if you are afraid of conflicts, this fear doesn't go away if you run away. You have to really attack it. Maybe not a big problem in the beginning, but you have to search for problems every day, maybe, and go into that and solve them. And if you are accustomed to that, if you practice it, if you experiment with it, what works, what doesn't work, if you get some feedback, maybe from a mentor, then you will improve dramatically.
Exactly. So look, when we were working with cultural and multicultural environment, two, three different type of culture, and you mentioned that having team cultural, some events, discussion, maybe invite them to meeting, talk about their own culture, what's the typical of their culture, let other people learn about that, and some celebration of their religious festivals, bring the sweets, and maybe organize something. Hey guys, bring your during breakfast. We're gonna have breakfast. Everybody bring some kind of food from their culture, and let everybody enjoy. More you can bring together. Team building activities can help to minimize or remove the lot of conflicts actually.
Yeah. And think about, one story I had from Japan. Being in Japan as a German, and we had some Indians on the team, and the Japanese client, they invited us for a nice dinner, and we went to a steakhouse. So
Hmm.
these Indians were vegetarians, and, this is bad as a starter, but it gets worse because at the end, the Japanese, as they do, they expected to split the bill. And
Oh,
Indians just eat a salad or whatever, and the others eat really expensive beef. So, uh, you have to be
yeah.
emotionally intelligent. We have to be empathetic and think about the other person's needs and the behaviors and cultural settings.
Yeah, that reminded me my first engagement where I was working with German people, and this guy throw the beautiful, like, okay guys, we're having dinner tomorrow. We're going back to Germany. We're going to have dinner, and we're going to have lots of food. And up in those days, I was vegetarian, pure vegetarian. Then you will have lots of options. And reach there, there are two table full of all crabs, prawns, and all fishes and beef and this and that, and chicken, everything. And other side, boiled rice and salad. Dharam, look, we have this and this.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, so it was good. It was good, memorable, something to think about. Yeah, so these kind of small events or events can help, can have a bigger impact in organization. And because we are being
Yeah,
the team building activities, we should consider them as team building activities where people are open to learn from each other and learn about other cultures behaviors, how we should behave. And when you are bounding, even sometimes, some sensitive matters we people ignore, but when you don't have bounding, even the small thing can become big conflict.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one advice, if you organize for an event with different cultures, as you said, with the food, don't think what you like best,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
think what is best for bringing
Ex-
the team together.
exactly. Definitely, that's a very big important tip. Okay, so looking ahead, what trends do you see emerging in conflict resolution for multicultural teams, and how should project managers prepare for these changes?
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe it's not so much the AI track that is leading us in the future. There will be AI tools, and they will help us, and is already helping us to prevent conflicts. But
Mm,
we also have on the other side the human irrational behaviors. Now try to form a team, including Ukrainians and Russians, or Palestinians and Israel guys. It will be a hard task to do, and to bring them together. So the world is getting more divided over time, or
mm,
even a team in the U.S. Between Republicans and Democrats. And if they fight each other, so it's not an impossible task, and as long as you can remove them from their cultural settings, and create a strong project culture, or if they and what helps is if you have a strong vision. So there are still Russians and US guys going on the space station.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
for
they have.
some reasons. Yeah, and there are still people coming together from the Ukrainian and Russian side and negotiate about prisoners exchange.
Mm,
So there is talk, and there is collaboration, and so if you have a good purpose, which is accepted by both parties, and as from life, and there are a lot of classes about that. You have to find common ground
mm,
first, and then you have to extend the common ground, and then every conflict will go away. And this is a human thing. And as long as we try to divide the common grounds,
yeah.
if we create walls and barriers, and that no AI can help us with that, because
Mm,
uh, or AI will at someday replace politicians and parties and everything, and do the voting for us, and then we might live in a better world. But that's a joke. Yeah. So uh, it's unluckily, conflicts always involve humans. There are actually no conflict between AIs. Why should it? They are not maybe rational, but cognitive, and they have data, and they can judge their choices, and they won't fight it. Anyhow, if you look this fighting and dividing and everything, though maybe we can benefit from a multicultural world, this multilateral world. I have a lot of hope in Chinese culture, leveling out some of the conflict areas. Indian culture, if
mm,
I find the Indian state as an amazing construct, with so many different tribes and castes and religions, and everything in there. And still, within India, yes, there are conflicts, but somehow the Indian state governments, they manage to keep it together. And uh, maybe
yeah.
it helps if you have external enemies, but so
Yeah.
you can forget the internal things. Um, uh, so the question is, maybe philosophical questions: if there are no humans, there are no conflicts. Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Let's have
maybe,
robots.
And the problem is, if AI comes to these conclusions, what will they do about it? AI.
Mm.
So, um,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, my point is like AI is actually good. One is, of course, it can detect or help you to identify early conflict resolution, but also it takes away your repetitive work. You know what you do as repeatedly, then the admin
yeah,
work. You free up yourself, which can help you to build relationship with your team members, to understand more, and doing some more team building activity rather than worrying about the repeated task. So you will start showing more and more human side rather than worry about task driven, milestone driven, this and that. So
yeah.
I see
True.
that way. Then once we are building relationship with your team member to a senior, your vendor, you actually uh, minimizing the conflicts within the project
Yeah.
programs.
Well, yeah, yeah. That could be a result of increased capabilities of AI tools and coming there. But I still think, that for a long time, conflicts will be based on the existence of humans and their irrational thoughts about, what is a nation state. It's an invention 200 years ago. Didn't
Yeah,
exist before, and now nationality and pride is embedded in so many nations, and it's a source of so many misunderstandings. So my vision is, maybe in 200 years or whatever, we will have a human hive. All of humanity will be
yeah,
really equal and working together. And the internet is a big technological step into that. Everybody can talk with everybody, and now we have these social media uh,
mm.
tools, and they might extend, but they are bringing people together, and hopeful if people talk to each other, they will eventually find a positive harmonic solution.
And they can also, this social media can also create some biases, because some politician want to think that you should be behaving or you should think like this. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
can another way, another reason there are more and more conflicts happening. Between two parties or two countries, people working together, they have their mindset. My country is better than your country. My those things. This
yeah.
bias is being created.
But you're a good example yourself. You're living in the U.S.
Hmm.
You came from Australia, but maybe you're from Indian descent at some time, and it's the more people like you exist, being at home in different cultures and nations and so on, the less it will become important what kind of
Yeah.
specifics you have.
Actually, the thing you brought good point is being open to learn from others and listen to others, and don't judge the other person based on what they're saying, what they behave, what they're behaving. Listen, watch and build relationship. That's the key of surviving in any culture or any countries you move around.
Well, it's also, one thing, the difference between mindset of win-win to
Yeah,
coming to a
yeah,
positive solution for both parties, and win-lose. When you
oh
have
yeah,
a zero-sum game, you think I can only win and compete if the other one loses. By my market share, my profits will go up,
yes,
and so the mindset of win-lose is somehow embedded into
exactly,
economy, into
exactly.
our capitalistic system, and that's a problem. The mindset we are teaching in projects with teams, with the customers, is always win-win. So we really don't want to have a win-lose relationship with our customers. Both
Yeah.
parties should have their benefit out of the joint project.
Okay, great. Thank you, thanks, Thomas. It's a great discussion. Lot to talk about, and still a lot to discover. And the people in the project management, that PMP in a PMBOK, it talks about conflict resolution techniques, identify various stages. My suggestion and our suggestion is you go back, look into the PMBOK,
Yeah.
and how to identify the conflict early enough, and how to handle and come up with a win-win solution rather than win-lose or lose-lose solution. Okay, so once again, thanks, Thomas, and appreciate your knowledge sharing, which has been going for a long time. Um, yeah. So I will see you again very soon with another topic.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.